What's up, everyone? Welcome back to Launch Fitness. Today I wanted to talk about a very basic movement that a lot of people A, struggle to do, and more importantly, B, struggle to do correctly. And that is the push-up. Push-up is a core foundation movement. In my opinion, and I'm sure in most fitness professionals' opinion, everyone should be able to do a push-up. If you cannot do a legit push-up, that should be one of your first focal points in achieving, as it's a basic movement pattern you should be able to do. All right. So the main thing I want to talk about in this video is the technique behind it, or how to prevent injury. Okay. And so the first thing I want to go over is your setup and shoulder position, to be specific. So a lot of people, when they do push-ups, they do this big elbow flare, right? Typically, it allows you, or allows some people, especially if you have weakness in the upper back and the arms, it allows them to actually get close to doing one or barely doing one. But the problem with this is anytime you press like this, the big elbow flare position, you recruit a lot of chest, but it's very, very hard and taxing on your shoulder joint, right? And if you're like me, an older athlete and looking for more longevity versus aesthetic-based looks, we want to focus more on staying healthy so we can keep moving and stay strong. So we're going to avoid getting in this position, and instead we're going to pull those elbows in. A good way to think about this is if I had a straight bar right here and I tried to bend it, look what happens to those elbows. The elbows come in. And if you ever talk to a power lifter, one of the things they tell you to do, especially older power lifters who have shoulder issues, is they tell you to try to bend the bar, right? Bending the bar sets the shoulder down and back, pulls the elbows in, and it's just a lot healthier position to press out of, okay? It's gonna switch a lot of the stress to more of the tricep. And so it'll be harder at first, especially if you're used to doing this big elbow flare position. But in time, you'll build the strength up to where you can keep those elbows in. Let's go over what it looks like now. So if I was going to set up, and let's say this is what I would say a poor, not mechanically correct push-up. Big elbow flare, and press back up. Instead, I'm going to pull my elbows in, and you'll see the difference. The elbow is staying aligned with that shoulder, okay? So that's the first thing we want to work on. The next thing we want to work on is your shoulder position in regards to the wrist and the elbow. And here's what I mean by that. We want to be in something called a stack position. So if I'm doing a push-up, if you'll notice right now, my shoulder is over the wrist, right? This is the proper starting position. If you're starting with the shoulders behind the wrist, you're not going to be in an ideal position, okay? So that's the first thing. Now, the next thing, what people have a tendency to do is when they go down, they don't move the shoulder forward. So look what's happening. My wrist now is underneath the shoulder, and this is not a healthy, this is not a good leverage position to press out of, okay? So if I try to press now, it's going to be pretty much all tricep, almost like you're doing a nose break or a tricep extension. Instead, what we want to do is let the upper body shift forward. So watch the difference. This is wrong, okay? Elbows moving back. And here's what we're really looking for. Shoulders shift forward, I come down, and look what's stacked now. The elbow is stacked over the wrist, and then I press back up into my start position. All right, and the same thing if you did powerlifting. One of the things, it's always depends, there's different techniques, but one of the common techniques is you start here, you're gonna lower that bar to the lower chest, and then when you press, you're gonna press not just up, but up and slightly back, like in a J curve, like so. And so the push-up I just did was literally that same kind of movement, all right? You can develop a lot more force and power. And if you practice that technique, it carries over, in my opinion, to the bench press. And if you bench press and practice your bench press and get strong in that same technique, it'll have a carryover into the push-up. Here's a little known fact. If you want to be able to do a push-up, you should be able to bench press approximately 70% of your body weight. I forget who I got that from. I think it was Charles Poliquin. But in my experience with working with clients, that's usually about right. So if we can get someone to do 1 rep on the bench, about 70% of that body weight, they're probably going to be able to do 1 legit push-up. Okay, so it's nice to have that, so you have a carryover. You know, if you get tired of working on push-ups all the time, you can focus on bench press. You'll have some carryover there to where they can do it. All right, another big thing. This is something I say a lot, not just in beginners, but actually in advanced athletes. And what it is their hip position. All right, the core, instead of being activated, the cores and hips are very saggy. And a lot of guys do this, I think, because they can do more reps. And here's what I'm talking about. So I set up for a push-up, right? Now, if I drop my hips, which a lot of guys have a tendency to do, you'll see them like this, my range of motion is short, and I can just pump away some easy push-ups. This is not good. There's no tension in the core. There's a lot of pressure on my lower back, and it's just not good mechanics. Instead, what I'm gonna do is tuck my hip, get into that neutral hip and spine position, set my shoulder down and back, and if you'll notice now, my chest and hips go up and down at the same time, or my chest will actually lead the way. This is harder. You can't do as many push-ups, but it's a lot more effective in my opinion. You're actually getting core utilization, and your shoulders are in a healthier position to press when you're in that neutral spine position, okay? So that's something else to try. These are just a few tips on doing a push-up correctly. Some other tips: if you can't do a push-up correctly, I would not do a knee push-up. Main reason with the knee push-up, you have a tendency to go into that extended position, right? That's just what I was talking about. So most people, when they do knee push-ups, they got a saggy bottom. This is what they're looking like. They're not really staying hollowed out as they do it. And this is not ideal, again, for shoulder health. So the way you can scale that is find some incline. If you work out at your house, if you have a bench, your countertop or a coffee table, the more elevated a surface is, the less resistance you're having to press, okay? So, for example, if I have this bar over here on my rack and I set it to an incline, it's the same technique, but it is allowing me to take resistance off my body and actually do the movement correctly, okay? Now, the other option is to do negatives. Negatives is a great option to build strength if used properly. And so remember, you are stronger in the lowering phase of an exercise than the concentric phase, meaning Meaning if, let's take bench press for example. If I can bench press 200 pounds, I should be able to load an additional 10 to 20% of weight at the top position and actually control the bar going down. I won't be able to get it up. I'd have to have a spotter or spotter arms, to either bottom out or help get it back up. But a lot of people will use eccentric training where they overload the negative. It's a good way to get stronger. And with a beginner who can't do a push-up, it can be beneficial, okay? So all you would do there, get in that top position of the push-up, shoulders down and back, lead with the chest. I can't get up, so I drop to my knees just enough to get up, and then I raise those hips up again, and I control myself. Now, if you do that and you're just falling to the floor or only going halfway down, you don't have the strength to do a negative yet, all right? If you choose a negative, you should have full control of the movement the entire way from the start to the finish. And you always want to use a full range of motion, okay? Full ranges of motion recruit different muscle fibers. And when we're trying to work on specifically strength, we need to be going through a full range of motion unless we're working on like a weakness or something. But for general fitness, let's use that full range of motion, all right? That is some key tips. Again, a recap of what we just discussed with the push-up. First thing we're gonna work on, elbows in on the push-up, just like your bench press. Second cue, going down, your bottom position, the wrist and elbow are lined up, okay? We're not doing this. This is all you're gonna be utilizing is a tricep. So shoulders down and back, elbows in, keep that stack position. What's stacked here? All my joints, wrist, elbow, shoulder. In the bottom position, wrist and elbow will be stacked, okay? And then the third thing was the back position. Make sure your hips and your shoulder are going down at the same time. If you're leading with that hip, you're not doing it correctly. You're not strong enough and you're looking for a way to cheat the movement pattern, make it easier, all right? Cheating never pans out. It doesn't work, all right? You may not pay for it now, but you're gonna pay for it at some point. So go ahead, especially if you're new, go ahead and start fixing it now. That way you have longevity and hopefully prevent any injuries. The final thing is know your limitations. Use your scales like an incline push-up or a negative until you build the strength to actually do a full push-up. And you can even switch over to the barbell bench press. It's a way you can actually track your weight, right? Barbell bench press, if I'm doing 100 pounds now for 5 reps and I get to 110 pounds for 5 reps, I know I've built some strength there, right? But with body weight, it can be difficult because if we lose weight or gain weight, that's gonna affect the strength or our ability to do the movement pattern. Anytime I put on weight, my pull-up strength automatically goes down because I'm having to pull up more weight. Push-ups is the same weight. It's a body weight movement. So if you weigh more, it's going to be more challenging, all right? So those are a few key points. I hope they've helped. If you have any questions on this, feel free to reach out to me at launchfitnessllc@gmail.com or follow me on Facebook for more tips. We will see y'all next time. Happy lifting.